We go to Fox News for, of course, nutty guys who are going to say not only defend gun use, but say we should do more and more guns everywhere. Nobody's surprised by any of this. Now, they're talking about this in the context of the guy in Oklahoma who beheaded a co-worker. You remember the story. He went in, the guy's crazy, obviously, and attacked the first two people he saw, and he beheaded one of them. And then he was shot by off-duty officer Mark Vaughn, who works at the store. Now, yesterday on the show, I applauded Mark Vaughn, saying, hey, I'm glad he took action there, and he probably saved some people's lives. Now, I also noted that if the person who was doing the beheadings actually had a gun instead of just a blade, he could have killed a lot more people. So thank God at least the guy doing the killings didn't have a gun, right? One less gun there equals a lot more people alive in that place. Okay. Now, again, but credit to Mark Vaughn for shooting him in that instance. Now, they're going to talk about this. If they just left it at that, that'd be perfectly fine, right? That makes sense. They're in favor of the Second Amendment, and they celebrate this guy who shot and killed the person who was killing other people. Great. Of course, they're not going to leave it there. Let's watch.
Put aside the philosophical arguments about guns for a moment. The practical argument is, and those of us who support the right to keep and bear arms have been making this for years, it finally is crested now in public view. More guns equals less crime. Why? Because the bad guys fear reactive violence from the victim or someone around the victim more than they fear getting caught. They all think they can get away. But if they think the victim or someone around the victim has a gun, that will give them pause or it will at least stop them in their tracks, as happened here. If more people were legally armed, there'd be less violence, period. Whether it's monsters trying to destroy us or whether it's a crackpot in the workplace or a nut job on the street.
Okay, there's so many things I enjoy in that. They're literally trying to get you scared of monsters in the night. Monsters that go bump in the night, right? Like, oh, there's monsters and crackpots and nuts, and they're all coming to get you. Boo! That right there is Fox News in a nutshell. And of course, more guns equals less violence, period. Period. Okay. I'm going to show you a graph at the end that, of course, disproves that entirely. It's totally made up. But also, remember that the guy who did the violence here, Alton Nolan, right? He was not dissuaded. They say, oh, yeah, if he knows that there are guns around there or suspects there might be guns, then he's not going to do something violent like this. He was in Oklahoma. He's pretty sure there's a lot of guns around in Oklahoma. He did it anyway. You know why? Because he's freaking crazy. And he's not calculating how many guns there are going to be at his workplace. He grabbed a blade and cut somebody's head off. The guy's a freaking lunatic. He wasn't calculating a damn thing. So his entire theory is wrong, but I can't wait to show you the graphs. But first, more nonsense from these two.
How many times have we had the conversation on this program where after a horrific shooting, regardless of where it was, a movie theater, a school, a shopping mall, something like that, if somebody just would have had a gun and taken a shot at the shooter, that whole thing might have stopped sooner?
Hey, if the pilots at 9/11 had been allowed to carry guns, as some of them now do, that awful tragedy might never have happened.
Yeah, we want people shooting inside airplanes. Great idea. Great idea. And look, in the case of 9/11, you had the one case where if you had hit the guy exactly right and not hit any other part of the plane, you might have saved lives. Now, are you sure you really want to trust people with guns inside planes making their own discretionary call? Oh, you used the knee defender. You were, as this story we covered last week, furiously masturbating inside the plane and I didn't like that. Or I thought you were a danger, whatever. I'm going to pull out my gun. Can you think of a worse idea? All right, one more. They're not done yet.
The problem is the President of the United States, who's doing everything he can administratively as the chief executive officer of the federal government and attempting to now get us to enact a treaty to make it very, very difficult to carry guns.
So if Barack Obama could, he would ban guns in the hands of everybody except the police.
He has made that patently clear. But his problem is the Second Amendment.
These guys are awesome, man. He's never said that. He's never said anything remotely close to that. It's 100% made up. Well, give me the quote. Great. Oh, you say he's made that patently clear. Give me a quote that even implies it. Nothing. Period. Period. That's what he said. Except that I just made that up. Okay. God, they're notorious liars. Now, let's go to the core of the issue, which is Judge Napolitano's hair dye. Dude, we all know you have gray hair. We've seen it a million times before, and then you're dying in it. It's like leaking onto your forehead. Don't do it. Anyway, all right, no. The core of the issue is, of course, more guns, does it equal more safety? Well, American Journal of Medicine did a study on this, and let me quote the lead author for you guys. There was a significant correlation between guns per head per country and the rate of firearm-related deaths, with Japan being on one end of the spectrum and the U.S. being on the other. This argues against the notion of more guns translating into less crime. You see, Japan was on the end of very little guns and very little violence. U.S. was on the end of a lot of guns and a lot of crime and violence and death because of the guns. Wow, who could have guessed it? Maybe anyone with an ounce of logic could have figured that out, but you're not convinced yet? I'll give you another chart. Okay, here's my favorite graph. This is the rate of violence when you compare it to other countries, other developed countries, wealthy nations. United States, 6.6 times more violence than Portugal, which comes in number 2. And then it peters out, as you see there. So Europe has a strict gun regulation, very low amount of guns, and very low amount of violence associated with that. The U.S. is through the chart. More guns, more violence. I believe that chart would be a period. Of course more guns lead to more deaths. Of course they do. Guns are built to kill people, and they do at a furious pace. But there are more guns around, well, less violence. Except for all of the data in the world that shows the exact opposite. All right, look, you can argue you love your guns and it's part of your freedom, and you say, hey, you know what, I know those graphs, I know, it's true. More people will get killed, but hey, more people get killed from cars and I got the freedom to drive a car, so Second Amendment rights, I don't care what you say. But understand that there are facts, and in your hobby and your right, whatever you want to do, you can make those arguments, but you can't argue that there'll be less violence, because that's now empirical. We definitely have more violence because of the guns. So cut it out, okay? At least understand reality and then base your argument around that.